Less than 4 years after he was released from prison into freedom, essentially in Alberta, Omar Khadr has been declared by a court in Alberta to essentially be completely free. He has no bail restrictions, he has no restrictions on travel, he has no restrictions on contact with his terrorist-supporting sister. Omar Khadr is just a normal, average, run-of-the-mill, everyday Canadian in the eyes of the law, after a judge determined that Khadr's time in conditional release, almost 4 years since May 2015, counts towards him serving out his sentence. Now, this is the sentence, of course, that stems back to a military conviction in the United States in which Khadr was found guilty after pleading guilty to committing murder in the battlefield while serving with a terror cell with Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. This is the grenade throwing incident to which Khadr has already confessed, where he threw the grenade that killed Sergeant Christopher Speer and injured Lane Morris. Now, this incident has actually led to a huge judgment to the tune of over $140 million in Utah that basically says Khadr owes the impacted families of the crime to which he confessed some form of restitution. Now, there's still some efforts to try to get that judgment enforced in Canada. We know that there was a report a few weeks ago indicating that Khadr had put a little bit of his $10.5 million windfall from the federal government into an investment property, a weird strip mall in Edmonton. But suffice it to say, there are still a lot of questions that Canadians are waiting for answers to about who Omar Khadr is. And he's entitled to appeal his U.S. military court conviction. His legal team has said that's exactly what it's doing. But that does not take away the right of Canadians to be uncomfortable by this man experiencing freedom when, quite frankly, the Speer family has had no reprieve from Christopher Speer's passing in Afghanistan just 15 years ago. I want to read a comment to you from one of Khadr's supporters in a CBC story about this latest evolution, where a judge who incidentally was appointed under this Liberal government to her post decided that he had served enough. Janice Williamson, a self-described supporter of Omar Khadr, said the following to CBC: "I think he wants to live an ordinary Canadian life, and I think this will allow him to do so. I hope it's a signal to his detractors that the rule of law and the justice system supports him in embarking on that ordinary life." When Andrew Scheer said that Omar Khadr should turn over some of the money he got from the federal government to the Speer family, Williamson said it was a dog whistle. She said it's Andrew Scheer, quote, alerting people who think that somehow Omar Khadr was unfairly compensated, or that somehow think Canadian citizens are hard done by because the justice system is treating him with the rule of law. You see, one of the issues that I have with a lot of the reaction to the Omar Khadr story is that there's an entirely defensible claim that this whole situation has been tragic and unfortunate, and Khadr was a child, and maybe there were some issues there, but ultimately justice should be served. And the problem is that most of his supporters have not come in that measured, nuanced way, but they've been downright cheerleaders. From a lot of the mainstream media reporters that have been covering his case to this woman, Williamson, people that don't just think what happened was tragic, they deny it ever happened. They deny Khadr's own confession. They deny the video of him actually assembling bombs as a young boy. And they do this while simultaneously claiming that anyone who has an issue with it is the one who should actually shut up. And this is one of the most tragic elements of this case, that no one has any respect or time for the argument that has been proven that families have been impacted by Khadr's actions. He was there as a young man, yes, but a man nonetheless. He had independence, he had a role to play, and that role contributed directly and indirectly to the loss of life. No one should be celebrating that he's now walking free, as though it never happened. Free to go to the country where this all took place if he wants. Free to communicate with the family who radicalized him, which he has fought to do. Free to do anything, except for feel a bit of regret, because that is apparently outside of his grasp. For True North, I'm Andrew Lawton.